Well, the San Antonio Regional has officially wrapped up, and it was the first TCG Regional I have actually entered, and I did pretty okay overall. Now, a bit of a backstory, last year I did go to their San Antonio Regional. I entered for the video game, VGC of course. That is what I've kind of typically played, kind of, you know, off and on. But around that time, I actually decided to pick up the TCG, and it was kind of my goal to go ahead and enter the Regional next year, the following year, this year, with TCG and kind of see how I could do. At the time, last year, you know, I was very new to the game, so still felt very fresh to me. Just a lot of things I didn't know and understand, but I do feel a lot better about the game now, and I managed to go 4-1-4 overall. As you can see here, I did have a lot of ties, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk about my experience, how my matchups went, how I got so many ties, and we'll kind of get into all that stuff. Also, please excuse the mess in the background. We've been moving. It's been a crazy week. I was running off of 5 hours of sleep before the tournament, so it's been a crazy week, but we'll get that cleaned up here pretty soon. So as you can see here, my day was kind of interesting, starting off with a win, then 2 ties, then 2 wins, my only loss, and then tie, win, tie. And the thing about it is, throughout the day I was feeling pretty good overall. There really weren't any matchups that I just felt were kind of unwinnable, except my loss and the last round. Both of those coincidentally were against the same deck, and I just had a bad time overall. But besides that, every single matchup pretty much felt winnable. A lot of the ties were, you know, literally just running out of time. That's typically what happens when you get a tie. But a lot of those did kind of come down to the wire, and I feel like had, you know, we've been able to play out the games, I would have actually won those, with the exception of maybe one of those ties. But that's kind of like the quick overview of my day right there. I'll go ahead and show you guys my deck here, kind of talk about the choices with the deck, and then I'll show you all my different matchups. So this right here is the list I decided to go with. I kind of changed my mind last second to Charizard. I was gonna run Dragapult Iron Thorns. I hadn't attended a tournament since like beginning of December, probably. That's the last local I went to, so it's been probably like a month or so since I've actually played like in person. But pretty much the entire last month, all I've been playing online is like Dragapult Iron Thorns. It felt pretty good. There were some matchups where it just kind of felt like eh. And then with the recent regional last week with, it was like Palkia Dusknoir that one, like a lot of people were playing Palkia, you know, Terapagos and things like that. I kind of figured that it wouldn't be the best move overall. Like a lot of people were kind of saying Iron Thorns, Dragapult were kind of falling off. Wasn't as good of a deck that people thought. Kind of saw less and less results with it overall. Definitely, you know, is very solid in some matchups, but other matchups, you know, it just kind of goes even or just, you know, loses pretty badly. Charizard is a deck that I'm pretty comfortable with. I've been playing it for a while. My main deck that I play is Lost Zone, but it hasn't been great for a long time, so I've kind of just been playing Charizard. And as you can see here, you know, right off the bat, it is a little bit of a different build from the standard Charizard list. We got the Precious Trolley, which I will explain my thought process there. But again, this was my first ever regional. I knew it was going to be a long day. I knew that, you know, best of 3, I kind of wanted consistency overall over anything else. You know, I'd rather just lose games straight up, or lose games because of bad matchups, rather than losing games just because I keep getting inconsistent hands and inconsistent setups. So my goal here was to kind of just go for consistency, you know, throw in cards that will help me in any matchup pretty much, and kind of just give me a chance against any deck. So obviously I went with a lot of the standard things here. A lot of people are running the 3-1-2 of Charizard. There was only one game where running 2 Charizards really haunted me, which I will get to when I talk about my matchups. But overall, 3-1-2 feels pretty solid overall. It doesn't feel like you necessarily need more than that. You know, same, you know, Pidgeot, you run the 2-2, nothing crazy there. I do like the Cleffa. I think the Cleffa is very useful. A lot of matchups, you know, even if you do have Rotom out, you do kind of want to bring Cleffa out sometimes, just so you have something to kind of sit in the active. And if your opponent knocks it out, then it really does nothing but help you, honestly. Just makes your Charizard stronger. So, you know, overall, it's just kind of a good pivot tool. Something good to have on the bench a lot of times in matchups. And of course, that Grasping Jaw is just very helpful sometimes. And in some matchups, I just felt like, you know, I would go ahead and bench Cleffa instead of the Rotom. And I would kind of just, you know, use Grasping Jaw instead of Instant Charge if I was going second. So a lot of times Cleffa was very, very useful for me. Manaphy only was helpful one time when I played against a Regidrago, and I actually prized it in one of the games, so it really wasn't helpful at all. Manaphy did not do much for me, so I could see myself having cut that. A lot of people were cutting Manaphy from Charizard. I decided to include it because I was like, well, you know, Palkia decks are becoming more popular. Greninja's there, you know, obviously we have Regidrago, kind of give me a chance there. But overall, it didn't really help me that much. Of course, I'm running the Duskull, Dusclops, Dusknoir, very standard Charizard stuff right there. Rotom, Lumineon, nothing crazy. But speaking of crazy, we do have the Pecharunt EX, which I really wish I would have not included. It did not help me for a single matchup at all. Like, I literally did not use this card whatsoever. My thought process was, you know, having not played a regional, I kind of figured that stall would be something I would, you know, run into at some point in the day. You know, adding the Pecharunt EX basically turns an auto loss into an auto win is kind of how I saw it. So, and I did see some Charizard lists include this, especially some Charizard lists with the Precious Trolley. So this is something that, you know, I added very last minute just to kind of give myself a chance in that matchup. And considering how many ties I had, I'm very surprised I did not run into a single stall matchup. But yeah, this thing was completely useless for me, so I definitely would cut it now. And then of course we have the Fezandipiti and the Radiant Charizard to close out all the Pokemon. Everything else here is pretty standard overall, I would say. I did run 4 Ultra Ball and only 2 Nest Ball. You'll also see I only ran 1 Buddy-Buddy Poffin, and the reason for that is because I do have the Precious Trolley. So obviously the thought process here is, if I prize Precious Trolley, then I should, in theory, have access to Buddy-Buddy Poffin. Typically, you know, if you play Unfair Stamp Charizard, what do? You know, you go for Arven, you get your 4 Seal Stone, you get your Buddy-Buddy Poffin, and after you kind of get set up from there, you know, you're pretty much squared away for the game. Like, you only really need that first Buddy-Buddy Poffin. So I was like, you know what, let me just go ahead and take my chances. Every game I should either get Precious Trolley, and in the event that it is prized, I should have access to Buddy-Buddy Poffin. If I prize both, then hey, it happens, but I'll take my chances there. You know, it worked out, I would say. Like, there weren't, I think I only prized Trolley like once or twice all day, like, surprisingly. So I had some pretty good luck there overall. But yeah, pretty much, you know, the game plan here is to find Trolley right away. If you find Trolley, you get everything set up, and by having Trolley, I can kind of cut out cards, cut out some Buddy Poffins, and include other cards. So you'll see one of the supporters I have here is Roxanne, which a lot of Charizards don't play anymore. Came in clutch in a lot of matchups. A lot of people were surprised to see the Roxanne, especially because, you know, turn 1 I'm going Precious Trolley, so they know I don't have Unfair Stamp, and they kind of just play the game, you know what I mean? And then when it comes down to it, they have 3 prizes remaining. I throw out the Roxanne, it completely throws them off. So that was actually a very good addition, in my opinion. I think the Roxanne was very helpful. I think the Trolley helped kind of make it a surprise in a lot of matchups. Briar, another card that, you know, before actually playing this tournament, I had never really used Briar too much. I haven't played Charizard like a whole lot in the last month. So I was like kind of considering not having it just because I didn't have the experience of really going for the Briar plays. But I definitely won some games just off of Briar alone. Great addition to the deck, and it just makes it so much stronger, in my opinion. Everything else with the list is pretty standard overall. I don't see anything here that's like crazy besides those things. But yeah, my thought process with Trolley was I wanted consistency. I wanted to be able to go second, go for Arven, 4 Seal Stone, Trolley, and honestly that setup was just nice every single game. Just, you know, basically setting up my bench instantly turn 2. Obviously if I didn't get it off, it felt very bad, but more times than not I was able to kind of get set up, which was very helpful. And again, the Cleffa was nice to have options because there were times where I would have Trolley and I would also have like Lumineon in play or in my hand. So I could Trolley, basically fill up my bench, leave 1 spot open, and then I could use that to put down Lumineon and find me a supporter, and then I can attach Stone to it, you know what I mean? I can search Collapsed Stadium, get rid of the Lumineon without having to bench Rotom at all and having Cleffa instead. So there were a lot of times where it was just really helpful overall. So the 2 big takeaways here that I would say, you know, having played the tournament now, I would probably cut Pecharunt, I would probably cut Manaphy. Those are 2 cards that were not helpful at all for me. Again, I kind of added them just so I had a better chance in certain matchups, but I just didn't really encounter those matchups. You know, I'm sure if I would have encountered those matchups, it'd be a different story, but from my personal experience, they did not help me at all. And yeah, honestly, from cutting those, I'd probably add another Buddy Poffin and then, I don't know, something else. I'd have to think about it. Now, moving on to the matchups, as you'll see here, I ran into quite a bit of different things here. I really only ran into 1 Regidrago, and that ended in a tie, which I'll kind of explain why that ended in a tie. But I was like, you know what, I'll take that, honestly, because that's a bad matchup. But other than that, I kind of just ran into different things here all day long. I ran into 2 Cloth, I ran into 2 Charizard. Other than that, every deck I played against was pretty unique. And Again, some of these matchups were interesting. Some of these ties, I'll explain why they ended in ties. Really, there was only, I felt, one game that should have went to a tie. The other three, I feel like should not have, but I'll kind of explain why those happened. So starting off the day, we had the Charizard mirror match. Obviously, every Charizard I played against was running Unfair Stamp instead of the Trolley build. I was the only one that I encountered that was actually playing that build. I'm sure other people did too, but yeah, starting off the day with a Charizard mirror. As soon as they flipped over the card, I saw it was Charmander. I said, okay, we got the Charizard mirror. This is going to be interesting. It's gonna be, you know, who can set up first, who can kind of make the big plays. And overall, round one felt pretty good. I never really felt like in danger of losing once we kind of got set up and got things going. Just the kind of the way I was able to set up my board, I felt pretty good overall in the matchup. And if I remember correctly, I think both games I was able to get set up pretty fast with the Trolley. So I was able to just kind of get going from the start just a lot faster. And I think that's one reason why I did pretty okay in the Charizard mirrors. Both of them I ended up winning just because I was able to kind of get consistently set up in both games and just kind of get going right away. There's also kind of just a lot of like pivoting, playing things a little bit slower at times. There were turns where I could, you know, attack, or I can kind of work on building my hand instead, and you know, just kind of making those decisions helped me out a lot. Able to clutch it out and start the day off with a win, which would, you know, felt really nice. I gotta say too, like, having not played a regional before, I haven't really experienced the having to play so fast at times. Like, it's kind of crazy to me. It honestly felt like if you split games, you know, one win, one loss, like it was just going to end in a tie every single time. So I don't know how people do it consistently. Like, I don't know how people go all tournament without any ties. I think that's kind of crazy. But I guess I just got to work on speeding up my pace of play. I feel like I played pretty fast overall, but I mean, I had 4 ties, so that says otherwise, right? Round 2 ended up playing against Archaludon Dialga, which was a matchup that I had not practiced whatsoever with Charizard. I've ran into this a lot with Iron Thorn's Dragapult online, which felt, you know, pretty okay at times because I could shut down Archaludon EX's ability, obviously. But you know, with Charizard, not a matchup that I practice a whole lot. I know Charizard, you know, does pretty okay against the build, honestly. I think it is favorable. I think most people would say that it's favorable, but just not a matchup that I'm very familiar with. I know the game that I lost pretty handedly. You know, they got the double turns off with Dialga, and from there I just kind of lost. I think they used it to knock out my Pidgeot, if I remember correctly, and they just started rolling me from there. It was not close at all, really. The other game, managed to win that one, and we took it to game 3. And this is one where at the very end I could have lost it. I knew that I had no chance to win, so I basically just made sure I ended off with a tie rather than losing, and kind of keep my chances alive for the day. So I was feeling like pretty content, you know, at the 101 at this point going into round 3. Round 3, we sit down, and this is where it was kind of interesting. We sit down, and the judge comes over and lets us know that we have a random deck check. So basically they had to take our decks, you know, check it to make sure that our card lists matched up, and then we can get going from there. Well, we're sitting there while everybody else is getting set up, and eventually the judges come back, they bring us our decks, and we ask, hey, do we get a time extension? Because, you know, we didn't have time to set up. They say, no, the round hasn't started yet, so there's no time extension. And the second he walks away, they announce that the round is starting. Before we've even shuffled our cards or anything, we haven't set anything up yet, and there was just no time extension. So we take, you know, 2, 3, 4 minutes or whatever to, you know, get set up. And this actually kind of ended up impacting the game, I would say, because, you know, we split games. You know, game 1 went by kind of fast, I would say. I prized my Manaphy. I just kind of got rolled in that game. Game 2, managed to win it. It was a pretty close one. And then we went to game 3, and it was a game 3 that, like, it was pretty close, I would say. But I feel like it could have been decided within a couple turns, and we didn't have that extra time, so we ended up tying. Now, I will say this kind of worked out in my favor because I do think that I probably would have lost this one. This is the one that I think I would have lost had we actually played it out. I guess the Dialga one too, so I guess there's 2 ties that could have ended up in losses, in my opinion. But this is one where I think if we would have had those, you know, extra 2, 3, 4 minutes, I think we could have definitely finished the game. But again, playing against Drago, having lost game 1, you know, pretty quickly, I was pretty okay with the tie, honestly. But I'm pretty sure that had we not had the deck check, we would have probably finished the game. Round 4 was against Raging Bolt. I don't remember this one too much. I do remember winning it kind of quickly. I don't remember exactly how the games went, but I do think this was one that was like kind of quickly. I think it was one of my better wins of the day, that I was able to win, you know, pretty solidly, so that one felt pretty good overall. Round 5, another Charizard mirror match. Again, they're running the unfair stamp, and this one went pretty good for me, obviously, was able to win it. And then the rest of the day was just kind of interesting overall. At this point, I was like dead tired. I was running off of like no sleep. I didn't eat anything at all because I left like super early. So I had nothing going here. I was just kind of exhausted, but needless to say, I don't think that impacted round 6 at all. I kind of just got destroyed round 6, going up against Terapagos, and really I don't even know why I threw Cloth on this picture. It was the Pecharunt that got me. I feel like I just had really bad hands overall, but to make it worse, like they were able to get set up fast, and not only that, they had the Pecharunt, not the EX version, but the maybe one that like poisons you and does an extra 50 damage. They kept getting knockouts with that, but I would die to poison damage, so I couldn't use Fezandipiti. And so because of that, I had, you know, bad hand. You know, they were set up. I kept dying to poison. I couldn't really draw cards from it, and it was just bad overall. Like, I could not do anything at all. Like, this is the only matchup all day where I honestly just felt like, hey, there's like nothing I can do here whatsoever. All the other matchups, you know, the ties that happened, yeah, I probably could have made some plays different. I could have, you know, maybe ended it off in a win. But this one, I just felt like I had no chance from the start. Like, it was just that bad. And at this point, having lost that round, I was 3-1-2. I knew that to have a chance to make day 2, I had to win out. And we had our round 7, which was a very, very unfortunate round. As you can see, it ended in a tie. And this was a matchup that I had not played in the longest time. I didn't even know that people still play this deck. I thought it just kind of fell off the face of the earth. And whenever they put down a Charcadet, in my head I was thinking, oh, it's just a Cerulege deck. And then I saw the Arceus, and I was like, what are they doing? And then I realized it's just Arceus Armarouge. You know, I was able to win game 1 pretty solidly overall. It wasn't that close if I remember correctly. Game 2, it just felt like the gameplay was going very slow, and I kind of knew, I was like, okay, I just need to win this. Like, if I win game 2, like, you know, no problem. If it goes to game 3, it's gonna end in a tie, and I knew this, like, because the gameplay was just going slow. Like, I just felt like it was very slow gameplay. And game 2, you know, I pretty much had what I needed to close out the game. I had it in hand. I think what I needed was a Dusknoir. I think it was Dusknoir and Briar, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what I needed, but I know that I had it in hand. And I was like, okay, if they don't disrupt my hand, like, there's nothing that they can do to win, right? So they used Bundo, I think, to push out my active. And I decided to move up my Pidgeot because I was like, okay, there's no way they can do enough damage to knock me out. The only thing that does, you know, a lot of damage on their board was Radiant Charizard. And we were tied in prizes. And so I was like, okay, Defiance Band, you know, not gonna work. So the most it's gonna do is 250, you know, no problem. And then as I push up the Pidgeot, they bench a Monkey Dory. And I don't know why, but again, I've never really played against this deck too much. Looking back on it, I guess playing Monkey Dory makes sense, but I just did not expect it whatsoever. And so as soon as they benched that, I was like, okay, like, I know it's gonna happen. They had damage on the Pokemon. They were able to move the damage 30 to my Pidgeot and then hit me with Radiant Charizard, and I lost the game from there. And it was really unfortunate because it went to game 3. We both knew that it would end in a tie. We tried to kind of decide a winner. I don't think that either one of us had a board state to where, like, we had a definitive winner. Like, we only, you know, were a couple turns in, I think, like, you know, 2, 3, 4 turns in. So it was kind of, you know, the likelihood of us making day 2, we have to win out anyways, probably not very high. I'd rather just take the tie and see how high I can place, just because I also felt like I should have won this game. You know, I should have won game 2. It ended in a loss. It is what it is. Now, at this point, it was round 8. I knew that I was eliminated from day 2, but I still wanted to close it out with a pretty solid record overall. Played against Ancient Box. This is the only one that went 3 games, and actually, we were able to finish all 3 games right before, like, it would have ended in a tie. I think it actually went to the extra turns, and I was able to clutch it out at the very end. This is one where I clutched it out with Briar. I remember this. So game 1 was kind of a longer game. I ended up winning. They ended up scooping, just because I started, like, just getting really ahead in prizes. They were like 10-20 damage short from knocking out my Charizard. I used Turo to pick it up, remove all the damage, and at that point they just I feel like didn't have enough time to really come back in that game overall. Game 2 lasted, I think, 2 turns. I think, if I remember correctly, I went second. I had Cleffa, and I had no way to bench any other Pokemon, so I lost. And so then we went to game 3, and this was again a longer game, kind of back and forth. And my opponent misplayed at the end. They were trying to go for something, and they ended up knocking out one of my 1 prize Pokemon because I think they bundled me, and I think I moved up my Duskull. And by doing that, they brought themselves down to 2 prizes, and I had 2 prizes, and so I ended up using Briar for the win. And yeah, overall, that's a matchup where Charizard usually wins, you know, pretty solidly. My game 2 was, you know, just kind of bad luck. I feel like just drawing into the Cleffa, no way out of it. But aside from that, overall, really good matchup. And shout out to my opponent. I was talking about how I didn't eat all day. He offered me some granola bars, and that really kind of got me through the rest of the day. So shout out to my opponent for being a good sport. And yeah, overall, pretty solid matchup right there. And to close out the day, I did play against my last opponent, round 9. As we sat down, he asked if I wanted to ID and we just go ahead and tie. I said, honestly, I don't care either way. You know, I'm cool with playing it out, or if you want to tie, you know, I'm cool with that too. And he's like, all right, let's make an agreement. If we're playing the same deck, we'll agree to tie. And I was like, sure, you know, I have no problem with that. So we flip him over cards, and as soon as I see what he's playing, I was like, man, I should have just pushed for the tie because this was my only loss of the day was against this deck. He told me his only loss of the day was against Charizard, so I was like, well, a very fitting way to kind of end off the day. Here we go. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how we ended up actually getting to a point where we tied, but we did. I did lose round 1, which was not very close if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure I lost pretty solidly. And then round 2 happened, which was a very interesting game. So this is one that was going very slowly, because in this game he couldn't get set up at all. Like he just kept, like I think he had Hisuian Sneasler out, and I think he had Fezandipiti. And he just, you know, he would do his turn and he would just pass. Like there's nothing he could do, right? And at the same time, I had like nothing on my board. I did have an Iono in my hand, but I was like, okay, there's no point of me Ionoing because I know for sure he's got nothing. I have nothing too, but I know he's got nothing. You know what I mean? So let me just keep, you know, passing. I'll keep testing my luck here and try to get set up. And the game eventually goes on. You know, eventually I do Iono and I kind of get my basics down and everything. You know, we're both kind of starting to get set up. He's still kind of, you know, breaking a little bit, not getting the best hands. And you know, there's a turn where I have a Dusclops on my board already. I have my Pidgeot set up, and at this point, I'm ready to start, you know, evolving into Charizard. And then I look through my cards, and I realize I don't have any Charizards. And then I also realize that I don't have a Charmeleon. And so I'm like, okay, well, I guess my option here is to attack with Dusknoir by using its ability to knock out the Sneasler and hopefully draw into Charizard. And then I realized I don't have a Dusknoir either. I prized my only Dusknoir, I prized my only Charmeleon, and I prized both of my Charizards. And so at this point, I'm like, okay, what can I do here in this situation to win? Like, what do I do? And all I really kind of come down to is I guess I have to attack with Pidgeot, but then I'm still 10 damage short on the Sneasler. That's the only thing I can knock out right now. So what do I do? So eventually, you know, they keep drawing into nothing. I can kind of eventually get set up somewhat. And so what I end up doing is I use Dusclops to attack one of his benched Pokemon. I think he benched a Pecharunt EX. I think I put the damage on the Fezandipiti though. That way he would be ahead in prizes that turn. And I attached Defiance Band onto Pidgeot. That way I would hit for 150. And then I knocked out the Hisuian Sneasler. I drew into Charizard, and then I got to actually play the game. It was just a crazy game. It was like a really fun game to kind of end off the day. Like we were both just getting terrible hands. Like I was saying the whole time, I was like, trust me, I know your hand is bad, but there's no way it's as bad as mine. Like I had no Charizard, I had no way to attack. It felt like so. That was the only game where I actually had to attack with Pidgeot. Somehow I won the game. I don't know how, but yeah, I was able to clutch it out. And after winning game 2. he's like, yeah, he's like, do you want to just tie? And I was like, yeah, I'm cool with just tying. Like at this point, let's just take the tie, see what happens from there. And yeah, that's how we ended off the day. So it was a really fun round to kind of end off the day, tying against the only deck that I lost earlier to. And yeah, just ending the day 4-1-4, you know, overall pretty happy about it. My 4 wins all felt very solid. My 1 loss, I got absolutely destroyed. And then these last 2 ties, you know, they could have, I think if we would have played out round 9, it could have gone either way. Kind of just comes down to how we get set up and things like that. Round 7, again, I feel like I should have won, ended up in a tie. It is what it is. And then these other 2, I feel like probably I would have lost had they played out, but I guess we'll never know. So those ended in ties as well. But overall, happy with my record, and I ended up finishing 494th out of almost 2,400 players. So overall, I'm pretty happy with that. And unfortunately, I found this out today actually. They do prizing up until 512th place, which means I should have walked away with like 9 booster packs, but I left the venue. I didn't pick those up, unfortunately, so I missed out on my prizing that I earned. But I still got some championship points, so that's always nice. But yeah, overall, I had a really good time at the event. Very tiring by the end of it. I definitely know what to do differently next time. Actually bring some food and things like that, so that'll be very helpful. But overall, I was really happy with the deck. Again, I would change a couple cards, get rid of the Pecharunt, get rid of the Manaphy. But aside from that, the list felt very solid. I really am enjoying the trolley build overall. I will have the paste linked in the description if you guys want to test it out yourselves. But it is a really fun build with Charizard and kind of a great way to build that consistency. With that being said, let me know if you had a chance to attend the regional, and if you did, let me know how you placed at the event. Just wanted to give kind of a little recap of the tournament, my experience and my matchups. So if you guys enjoyed this, let me know in the comments, and also be sure to subscribe to the channel. I don't know if I'm gonna go to any other big tournaments this season. This one was like down the street for me, so it was very convenient to go to. But we'll have to see. Maybe NAIC will be a possibility. We'll have to just kind of wait and see. But yeah, I am excited to play. I'm excited for the new format, and I will be getting back into locals, I think, and kind of trying out some different decks. But again, thank you guys for watching the video. That's going to be it for this one, and I'll catch you all in the next one.